Okay.
We're back with Janice Jones. She's with District 7, City Councilor District 7. Before we went for break, we were talking about a variety of issues there having to do with transport. We'll move on a little bit because I know we don't have very much time. As far as the economy goes, I know we're struggling a little bit because of the overall reflection of the economy. I know the mayor takes a lot of heat, the governor takes a lot of heat, but we are plugged into the nation, and there's a lot of issues related to the overall economy being flat and being without a pulse. So tell us what you think, as far as the city goes, how we would create jobs and things of that sort, bring certain skill level jobs that you think the city might benefit down the road.
Well, it's not, the city isn't going to act alone. So for the state of New Mexico, some of the easy things to do but hardest things to get done is making sure that we fill the nation's natural resource needs. Rare earth elements. The state of New Mexico has 13% of the world's deposits.
Correct.
But because we have such a dysfunctional regulatory environment, we are not filling this need for our nation. And yet, filling a need is probably one of the fastest ways to build your economy. When you're meeting the needs of people, manufacturers, other countries, that's a good thing. So I think we have to kind of adjust our attitude. At the same time, in Albuquerque, the research and development that happens in many places, taking it to export, making sure that we are applying it to other things is another relatively quick way for us to build up our economy. But all of these steps require that we change our business atmosphere. When we make it onerous to start a business, when we make the paperwork and the cost of compliance in excess of 20% of revenues, we have a problem. And that's really where we are.
You're talking about larger corporations?
No, I'm talking about everybody.
In business in general?
Absolutely. Okay. And can you imagine that? You know, and that's probably one of the things that New Mexico has to look at is the way that we have set up our regulatory and tax environment. The cost of compliance is exceeding 20% of profits, 20% of revenue, excuse me.
And that drives the business out of here.
It does. We are not competitive. And we can actually fix that. Mayor Barry is doing that in many of the online operations. For example, there are many planning functions now that are signed off online. People are just so happy that they are not going to an office repeatedly, literally wasting their time dragging this out. And yet on the other side, at the state level, we still have instances where there are new mining opportunities, especially with the copper mines, but even these rare earth elements. And it is impossible to even begin work within 2 years. Capital dries up in about 6 months. And I'm sure you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
And so if you've got an opportunity, you have to actually make progress. And we can't let the regulations stop that.
So you think regulation is a part, it's a component, but it's not the entire?
Oh, it's not the entire story.
Okay.
You know, and I'm sure, you know, the longer term piece is, do we have people to do the work? And I know from many employers that this is a big issue. Are we succeeding? Now, I have to tell you what, I have a lot of faith in our children. This next generation coming up is as smart as they come, and they are going to solve problems differently. Are some of our children behind? I do believe they are, but it isn't all of them. And so there are many answers, but they have to have a chance to go to work. And right now, even the minimum wage jobs are being taken very much by people who are my age, which is a little old. And the kids who need to use those jobs as training are not getting that opportunity. So this is like a death spiral, but we've got to change that.
I was talking to a gentleman on, I believe he is by Coors on the west, kind of the west side there. He was saying, I can't find enough individuals to come and work in his plant. That was kind of shocking to me. I didn't understand that at first. I said, what do you mean you can't find it? He said, well, it requires a specific type of skilled worker to come and work in here. Someone who understands machining, so there is that element of not having sufficient skilled laborers in certain areas, manufacturing is probably one of them. I remember when Intel came in, everybody's very excited and stuff. They brought a lot of contractors that created a lot of other jobs there. So I think focusing on being a little bit easier on business will benefit the state. Eventually, I tend to agree with you on that. Because I personally see the issues related to business. You hear that a lot, that you can't do business here, you can't do business here. And always asking, why can't you do business here? You could talk about regulations or some other issues there. Let's move on to healthcare, if that's okay. With the national healthcare being mandated next, it gets in effect 2014. How do you think that would affect New Mexico? We were like, I think #3 as far as healthcare industry with the health care providers and stuff. Do you think that we get affected to a point where, with the exchange coming in, how do you?
Well, I'm saying, so the exchanges are nothing new. New Mexico kind of had a healthcare exchange anyway. This is a federal mandate, and you know,
do you see any drastic change there, though?
Not really, except for who's paying for the website.
Okay.
Because what a health exchange is it's a public portal where you can make a comparison. That's really what it is, but that's only a piece. I am seeing some negatives with the Affordable Care Act coming in, and it's most pronounced, obviously. My mother is in her 80s, and I am already seeing many people in her age group who are unable to get appointments, or the appointments are drug out. And that part's very
That's due to Medicare?
Oh, yeah.
So because of the cutbacks and stuff, with the recent cutbacks?
Yes, yeah.
So you're starting to see an effect immediately?
We are.
And I think that would be a factor going down the road there.
I think
because no one really knows what's going to happen. And I try to study, so many pages there, trying to study the Health Care Act. It's very difficult. I couldn't even go through 100 pages without being confused. I needed someone to explain what's this and what's that.
You have to have a map.
Yeah.
You have to have a map.
And the general public always suffers from not knowing what. So I was asking if you have, as far as information, what would happen, how would it affect
Well,
us?
there are a number of things that truly bother me. The health exchange, I think, is terrific. Clearly, the and what is the term I'm looking for? Being denied because you have special needs or pre-existing conditions.
Conditions.
It's a long time coming. Enough. But at the same time, this bill comes with such a very heavy price. The taxes on the backside, I think, are going to surprise you greatly. We actually talked about this in the congressional campaign.
I think we did, yes.
You know,
we covered a little bit on it.
There are real estate costs that are going to go up by 3%, that if you're selling your home, you're going to be very, very surprised. There are additional requirements on your physicians. Some of the reporting requirements are a little bit frightening. And those are all things that...
For doctors.
For doctors.
For doctors or general hospitals.
So here's one of the things that, since we've been talking about the Second Amendment, that people are very concerned about. If you go to your doctor, they're going to ask you a series of questions. Do you feel safe in your home? Do you have depression? Do you have a gun in your house? And the doctors are required to actually catalog that information.
They're actually required by this new law.
Absolutely. Now, I personally don't think it's any of their business. So if I take that response, what penalty is imposed on the doctor? And there is a penalty.
And I think these are the issues that we'll have to eventually work out, because there's so much detail in there. And like they say, the devil's in the detail. It's very true.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're wanting to cover everybody, and I think that's where he started out. That was his ambition, to cover every single individual in the state. But then, I think initially we're going to have to struggle with it, trying to find out how it's going to help us and how it's going to hurt us.
Well, but at the end of the day, change is always difficult. In Uptown, we are going to renovate Winrock, and we are going to have more people living there, and the traffic is going to increase. It's going to be difficult, but we're going to find a way. We will find a way with health care.
I think so. We have probably very little time left here. Do you feel that that your district, as far as wanting you to represent them, do you feel that they're happy with you at this point? Because they didn't expect that. They just had Michael Koch there, and all of a sudden, then the mayor appointed you.
Well,
how are they reacting to? I'm just curious.
I'm going to say I think it's good because I came from the neighborhood association. So one of the first things,
because you actually lived there for many years, so
we
they
did,
know who you are.
But we called a meeting of all the neighborhood association presidents. I was so excited to hear what they had to say. You know, and sometimes it sounds like griping, but we started the meeting by saying, tell me what is good about your neighborhood. And I took reams of notes. I am so encouraged. And you know, and there are small things that we can do, but there are these big things that are going to be difficult as we change traffic patterns, as we become more dense. There'll be some very difficult discussions, and we will figure it out. So I like to think, yes, they're very happy.
I'm glad to hear that. I just wanted to ask you what your constituency was saying, you know, because you always like to know what they're saying. I mean,
well, I would say so far, if I've done anything bad, nobody's told me. But then again, you know, I'm not quite 2 weeks on the job.
Exactly. You're jumping in there last minute there. When you're you know, you're with the legislative branch of the city, you're working for the whole city. So on behalf of the whole city. And I think most people try to understand that, but then they always say, no, she's working on our behalf, so she has to work on just District 7. But
well, I mean, it's kind of like representing your district in Santa Fe. Yes, you do represent them. Yes, they have a special place. But first and foremost, when you're elected to any body, you're responsible to the bigger whole. So when I was in the legislature, my responsibility was first to New Mexico and then to my constituents. It is true at the City Council. Your first responsibility is to Albuquerque as a whole. How are we going to prosper that? And if I can do, actually Ike Benton and Ray Gardino and I were just talking about what are the other things we can do in Nob Hill? And how will that connect to the international district? And I have to tell you what, I have a plan that the economic activity in Uptown is going to just trickle right down Louisiana and run right into the international district. You have to look at all of it, because when the international district prospers, so does my district. And when the mayor brings the river back into Albuquerque, and that's close to the west side and downtown, everybody prospers.
I think so, yeah. Well, I wanted to thank you for coming in.
Oh, it's a privilege.
I know you just got appointed. It was probably, I was thinking maybe it's premature. I should wait till she's settled in.
Till I really know something.
No, until you're settled in. I didn't want to bring you there and have you post things there that, you know. So hopefully I kept it a little bit general there, so you didn't get into areas that you were not comfortable with. So hopefully we'll have you back.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the invitation. This is just a remarkable program, and we're so proud of you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
We're out of time, so we'll be back next week. Thank you. That was Janice Allen-Jones. She's with District 7, and we'll see you next time.